I was expanding our archives earlier, reviewing the old footage and reviewing the old databases, checking if they still were up to date with the Star Wars lore, and came across something rather fascinating. For those of you who have played the Force Unleashed game, you will unquestionably know about Sith Master Starkiller, codenamed Galen Marek. Born Galen Marek, codenamed Starkiller. Starkiller was an exceptionally powerful Force user. He was continued and condemned to be possibly as powerful or more powerful than the Chosen One in Darth Vader. Darth Sidious even stating that Galen Marek's powers, should it be honed, trained and perfected and polished to its highest degree, would perhaps rival, or as we on the channel here believe, eclipse his own. This is an incredible statement coming from Darth Sidious, as Darth Sidious rarely provided praise to anyone but himself. So, join us today, Acolytes, as we delve into how powerful Galen Marek, the Force Unleashed, was. How powerful was he? What was his greatest Force feat? And how could he match up against Darth Sidious and Darth Vader? Before we begin, I would like to inform you that the subscribe button has unleashed a Raku plague upon the subscribers. For all viewers who delve into our archives and immerse themselves in knowledge, you must use the Force to subdue the subscribe button by hitting it. It greatly supports the channel and will stop the subscribe button's Raku plague from spreading. Are you ready, Acolytes? Let's proceed. Starkiller mused that he could destroy a Jedi Temple replica while decently before his prime. As they reached for orbit, he watched the temple retreat behind him until the outline of its Lucius grandeur was barely discernible among the surrounding Junkan hills. He could have knocked the ridiculous toy castle down around Cusden's ears with one Force push. The Force Unleashed, and he redirected a falling Star Destroyer purely with the Force, a feat that matches up to Grandmaster Yoda. Grandmaster Yoda, during the events of the Clone Wars, was able to redirect two separatist gunships into one another. However, he did divert one, making it change direction. However, this was a pure telekinetic feat, and an exceptional one at that. Galen Marek was one of the first beings in Star Wars to achieve oneness with the Force, which gave him a massive power boost akin to that of a Force entity, or perhaps even greater, with the Force, and stands up to Darth Sidious, the most powerful Sith Lord of his time, and arguably in the conversation of most powerful beings in all of Star Wars, in Star Wars Legends, for a time before his death. A squadron of stormtroopers ran into a room, led by a limping Darth Vader. They raised their blasters to gun down the rebels as he fled up the Rogue Shadow's ramp. "No!" the apprentice cried, dropping his defenses to strike one last time at the Imperials. Energy surged through him. He felt as though a star had blazed to life in his chest. Driven by concern for his friends rather than himself, he embraced the Force completely, utterly, and was rewarded with strength that made his efforts with the dark side look like those of a child. His nerves were on fire. Streamers of light radiated from his skin. His bones glowed like radiant lava, stated the Force Unleashed novelization. Starkiller's clone, the complete replica who only expanded on Galen Marek's actual potential and experience, was able to blow an entire hole in a city, which Boba Fett commented on. The clone also could protect the salvation from heat comparable to the outer layer of stars, raindrops hitting with the force of thermal detonators, then destroys the ship in an explosion larger than that of Kashyyyk's tree while sheathing the blast to contain it. Starkiller's eyes jerked open. Where was he? All was dark around him. He smelled smoke, and his body felt as though it had been hit by an asteroid. The last thing he recalled was tightening the Force shield around him and destroying the salvation so it wouldn't kill Juno, who was somewhere on Kamino then. But his mind remained full of strange images and feelings that he had never experienced before, said the Force Unleashed too. Ahead, a series of cloning towers loomed, standing as upright and tall as the Washir trees on Kashyyyk, also stated the Force Unleashed too. It was also stated that the giant washer trees of Farik dominated the landscape, with over 1,000 different varieties that had adapted to growing everywhere. He also was able to defeat a weakened, prior to the New Hope, and nearly in his essential peak, Darth Vader, by exploiting his damaged chestplate that Juno had created, also defeating him with Force Lightning in the later games. Before Vader could strike, Starkiller turned. He didn't activate his own lightsabers. Vader would be expecting that. A defensive pose, or at best a half-hearted attack. Starkiller was surprising with the one weapon Vader couldn't wield in return. A burst of lightning arced from Starkiller's fingers. Too late. The Dark Lord raised his hand to catch the attack. Lightning crawled up and down his chest plate and helmet, provoking a painful whine from his breathing apparatus. The servo motors in his right arm strained. Starkiller only had a split second before his former master repelled the attack. The force flowed through him. Droid parts and debris rose up and spun around the room. With a harsh rending sound, the metal wall burst outward, letting in the fury of the storm. But even in the grip of his passions, he knew there was a difference. He was intimately familiar with what had been driven by negative emotions, felt like. He had originally been a slave to the dark side until Juno and Kota had showed him how to be free. That legacy remained even now. He would choose the emotions that ruled him. He would not be a slave to them. The dark side tugged at Starkiller, and it was hard to resist. He hated his former master. He feared for Juno. He doubted the very fact of his existence. Killing the man who had created him would go some way to solving at least two of the problems. The temptation was very strong. Where does he peak out? TF2 takes place before A New Hope, where Vader is more powerful than Starkiller, even the clone of Starkiller, who was more powerful. Ben Kenobi has been stated a multiple amount of times to be worse than Phantom Menace Kenobi, yet he is still above A New Hope Vader, or at least equal with him. Starkiller was immensely powerful. The point of his existence is that he is a playable protagonist. He's not meant to be a good character or an interesting read. He is merely the player's manifestation of the game world. Galen Marek's powers were intense. His lightsaber combat style was moulded between styles and incredible, trained by one of the greatest lightsaber duelists of all time. Even as a child, his power was exceptional, with immense potential that would have allowed him to become the most powerful Force user of all time, possibly eclipsing the power of even Darth Sidious. His power proved too great to impress Vader enough that he risked sparing him to mould him as an apprentice, believing he had the potential to, alongside Vader when at most were the height of his abilities, defeat Darth Sidious, who was considered to be the most powerful Dark Lord of the Sith in history. Even Sidious himself acknowledged that Marek's strength in the Force could become an equal to his own. As a young adult, having been trained extensively to be a living weapon capable of helping Vader in defeating Sidious, Marek became an immensely powerful and proficient Force adept, with his power being acknowledged by the Jedi he had faced and defeated, and Vader believing him to be ready to aid him in executing Sidious. While his usage of the Force combined combative nature, especially that of the dark side, was outstanding, his solely combative nature training rendered him unable to use less aggressive Force powers. But after fully turning to the influence of the light, he had overcome this limitation, as he finally became capable of voluntary farsight, while he could not when he still submerged himself in the dark side, despite frequent attempts. At the same time, he fully retained his exceptional skill in applying the Force in battle, being able to use dark side augmentation in order to fuel his abilities and make him more powerful. As shown by his ability to best his former master and eventually Sidious himself in single combat, although when he was only using the light side, he seemingly could not defeat the Dark Lord, only match him. Once Marek got enraged by the revelation it was Sidious who was his master, he was able to channel the dark side energies and gain enough power to make short of the work of the Emperor through and after, although it briefly overrode his self-control to the point he would have killed Sidious had Kota not stopped him in his final stand, although it cost him his life. Managed ultimately able to overpower the Emperor's immense power post-time skip, and at his pretty much peak before the events of the Dark Empire comic series, by drawing power from his concern for his allies and unleash a burst of power that nearly killed both Sidious and Vader and heavily damaged the immensely skilled and vast Death Star 1. Marek's skills and proficiency with telekinesis were considerable. He often cleared entire hallways and rooms with powerful Force pushes and repulsors, even caught TIE fighters in mid-flight. Even as a child, he was skilled enough that he managed to disarm Darth Vader of his lightsaber without him even aware of it, impressing the Dark Lord visibly. Proficient at telekinetic lightsaber combat, he would often direct his lightsaber to seek out specific enemies and impale them through the abdomen, often killing them instantly. He was even able to redirect fired missiles and ballistics. Although the use of telekinesis, he could, albeit with great effort, change the direction of a falling Imperial 1-class Star Destroyer and force it to the ground. In addition, Marek was also able to use this ability for fine manipulation, such as dismantling and reassembling his own lightsaber during various meditation sessions. Marek's telekinetic proficiency and mastery was even great enough that when enraged and outraged, he was capable of telekinetically overtaking Darth Sidious, easily blasting him off his feet with a powerful force wave and force pushing him against the ceiling of the